All right, Randy, I know we got everybody?
Miriam down the hallway.
We're gonna see Miriam later as part of the duo that's gonna be speaking. Do you have an update from your recent meeting, you said possibly?
Sure.
Of what's going on?
So I'm involved in the New York State Council on Hunger and Food Policy. And yes, 2 days ago there was a meeting up in Albany that the Department of Environmental Conservation put up, the DEC. They're hosting stakeholder meetings across the state with regard to the food recovery and recycling bill. And this is a bill, legislation that takes effect in January 2022. And from my experience, it's the first time I've seen a government agency really prepare for legislation. This bill requires that large food generators, and what that means is companies that have 2 tons of waste or more a week, that they would be required to not throw away that waste, but one, if it's edible waste, it would be donated to a food bank or a food program nearby. If it couldn't be, if it's not edible, that it could be recycled, or then it would go to perhaps a pig farm, and last but not least, it would go to what's called an anaerobic digester, which would take the product and break it down, actually separate it and break it down and potentially create energy. And here on Long Island, in Yaphank, a company is building what will probably become one of the largest anaerobic digesters on the East End. So this bill, it's taking 2 years. They're meeting with the food haulers, they're meeting with food banks and other food programs, they're meeting with some of the large food generators just to hear what some of the concerns and problems would be, to try to come up with some solutions to them before the bill takes effect.
That's great. I know, Michael, you're working on this project. If you keep it very short,
Yeah.
like little short, then we can.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I appreciate it, thank you. For those who do know, my business, Janko Environmental Services, very active in
Thank
the
you, Randy.
environmental arena. The anaerobic digestion processing, both at a retail level and an institutional level, we've been very involved in for many years. The facility in Yaphank has some permit design issues that may or may not let it get built anytime soon. We'll see where that goes. Personally, my team, my group, is in the process of bringing out a program and a facility that hopefully will be built in Calverton that'll enable us to execute it, and we are looking for private funding investment to take it through the soft money side. We have commitments in excess of $20 million per facility. On a banking side, once we get the permit in hand. So we are looking for
Well, we weren't going for the financial speech yet.
just making it
out. I just wanted you to explain what the process was
the process
and what
of
it
anaerobic
generates, because what's happening is.
Reel it in.
They're right, exactly.
The process of anaerobic digestion is the management of byproduct, non-usable but reprocessable for the purpose of waste to energy creation.
And what's the energy that it creates that could be utilized?
Electricity.
Electric, gas, there are multiple byproducts, spin-offs, off-takes,
Right.
pellets,
For our purposes,
fertilizer.
since we're all involved in this industry,
Sorry.
this is a great thing.
Bacteria?
No,
What's the
not
conversion process?
I'm sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead. He's
What's the
asking what
conversion
process is.
process? What is it?
The conversion,
Yeah.
it uses water, energy, mulching, technology. The anaerobic digestion industry's been around for 30+ years, and the farming industry is very mature. The problem is there's no commercial industrial facility to receive the product that is now being regulated. New York City has had it on the books for a couple of years, they're now enforcing it. They're going into the 3rd phase of the program, which will basically be all generators. The large-scale generators have been on the radar for a while, so the problem again is there is no large processing facilities here in the region. We've got 2 programs being built out right
And just lastly, I'll just say that companies like Stop and Shop, for example, up in Massachusetts, all of their waste from their stores are sent to their anaerobic digester. But there's a distance issue, and so that's why it's important that other anaerobic digesters come up so that people could use it and it could be for some benefit.
And just to comment on that,
You need the last word?
I'm gonna let you have it. The Stop and Shops, these generators who are large scale, they have had mature programs where they feed their systems. The problem is commercially, industrially, the independents, there is no place to bring theirs. And that's the programs that, you know,
It manufactures like energy that can be stored and used at a later date, is that something?
the energy
that-
will be put right back into grid, it'll run the
Right.
plants, it can be sold, there's multiple byproducts, the offtakes and economics.
I'm just gonna throw this out though, but the legislation actually may be removing the anaerobic digester part of it out of the legislation, so, I don't know how important it is. It's an important thing, but I'm not sure if it's important to the particular legislation that I was speaking about
If
in
it
the
comes
end
out,
in
they'll
2
never
years.
build any.
Right.
Randy, I have a question, if the waste comes to, if that bill comes to fruition and the waste comes, not the waste, I didn't say it like that, but the discarded food
Yeah.
come to you, how do you think that affects your influx and your, you know, like,
Right.
current capacity
Right.
and so on? Like, do you fear that it could be at a risk because you'd be overloaded in a sense? I know you want more always,
So, well, I appreciate the question, I think it's a really important question. We're already doing it, it's called food rescue work. And so, quite frankly, most of the large food generators that would be covered under this legislation are already donating to us. The problem is there are a lot of large food generators that have been excluded from the law, they had good lobbyists. And so, hospitals are not included, some schools are not, elementary and high schools are not included. So there are a number of industries that are excluded, and those are the ones that we're not rescuing from. It will increase though, for all of our organizations, and so hopefully at some point it will become a funded mandate. And so in the beginning, we just want this legislation to take effect because it's an educational process. And people need to understand that when you have edible waste, it can go for good use, and it could be feeding people who are hungry. And so this, for us, this is an educational thing. Over time, we hope that there'll be more funding for it. So it's a sensitive question that you asked. Thank you.
The edibles all belongs to her. Should go there, it's a great program, very mature, build it out. The materials that are going into anaerobic, the downstream side of that, are the expireds, the non-edibles, the packaged goods that are not going to end up anywhere in a reuse, recycle market. This is what's currently being landfilled and no longer will be accepted into landfill because of its wet waste nature. And segregation at site is now being implemented, mandated, and enforced.
And so here it's great, because we're hearing both sides. We're hearing it from the legislative side and also from the food rescue side and actually the production side of it. And then here in this room, we have enough to help both sides of them get this thing to fruition because it's gonna help everybody, besides the energy, the food waste, food recovery. So it's a good opportunity for everybody. That's why I wanted to talk a little bit about it so you can see the opportunities that are out there for all of us to get involved. And if the schools aren't involved, your school district, there's no reason all that food should go to waste. You know, in the hospitals and those. So there's a way to get all that stuff recovered or hopefully soon turned into energy rather than all our landfills. So we all live on Long Island or close to it and there's no room here anymore for any of that. All right, you ready, Nance?
Okay.
But you gotta do it over here.
Should I do it? Yeah, because.
Oh, you wanna go over there?
if
Well,
someone did a man, I don't know if I should be there or there.
all right, we can take a vote, but if you come up here now, we can get started.